All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our 6th episode of 3WEDU, our podcast here that we have. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this podcast is about for some of you that are new. Second of all, I'm going to give you some resources to follow along with today or to refer to. Third, we're going to have some introductions. And we have a couple people that are joining in here as we go. So 3WEDU actually stands for Women Who Wine in Education. And it started because the 5 of us knew each other. And by the way, I'm Tanya Justin. Knew each other, and when we would go to conferences on site, we would have these really great conversations. We would, talk about different challenges that we had or advice that we had, whether it was for job hunting or projects that we were working on our campus. Some of it was professional and some of it was personal. And we started realizing that we didn't only have to have these on site. Patrice Tersiva, who is going to be joining us in a bit, and I were at OLC. She was disappointed she had to leave earlier, and I was thinking, we don't have to, just meet at conferences. We can meet virtually. And my colleagues, Nori and Jess and Laura and I, we had already sort of been having these one-off virtual meetings here and there and hangouts, and we thought, well, why don't we make this a little bit more formal, where we all come together and we can have these fun happy hours, because we all love drinking wine and we all love talking about education and the different opportunities and challenges that we're dealing with. And then we thought, wow, maybe some other folks would like to join in these discussions, or at least hear what we're talking about. And so that's sort of how this came about earlier this year. Actually, in January, we had our first podcast. And so we really wanted to talk about our values and encourage each other and our leadership at our institutions and nationally. We also wanted to talk about our work in innovating, not only in teaching, but also in the research that we do, and just looking to provide the space that we can, have these discussions that we can't always have on our campuses or with the colleagues that are local to us, and we wanted to have them more often rather just on site at conferences, a few times a year. So that's sort of how this was born. There's a couple resources. One of the resources for today is a Google Doc that was put together. And so this Google Doc will give you a little bit of the agenda and the brainstorming that we did ahead of time and what we're going to talk about today. In this doc, not only will you find the agenda, you'll just find different information that we talk about. And specifically what's really helpful is resources that we share that we sort of came across in the month that stimulated these discussions. And that's at the bottom of that Google Doc. And we've shared it out on Twitter using the hashtag, and you can find it there. And I also had popped it into the group chat. Not sure if folks can see that. Now, if you're not able to join, or you have to leave early, or you're interested in the other 5 podcasts we did, you can always go to our YouTube channel and check it out. I always just search #3WEDU or #3WEDU in order to find that channel. But you can find it there. We also have a new digital homepage thanks to Laura here. So if you go to 3wedu.wordpress.com, you can get direct links to those podcasts, as well as find out a little bit more about us. And then also we have blog posts there with a little bit of information about the different podcasts and so forth as well. So we have the web page, we have the YouTube channel, we have these ongoing and so we send out invites for this and so forth, so you can go ahead and check in on that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. What we usually like to do is talk about what's on Uncorked today, and each of us sort of walk through what we're drinking. Now, I should mention there's 5 of us. I'm going to introduce my colleagues and then talk about the 2 that are not here today and 1 who will be joining us. So to get us started, Nori, why don't we start with you? So this is my colleague, Nori Murphy-Barajas, from the Online Learning Consortium. Nori, what are you drinking today, and why?
Okay. Well, because it's cold, I'll just start with the important stuff. I have this beautiful bottle of Woodwork Central Coast Chardonnay. I truly bought it because it had this jaunty tag, and I thought it was a screw top, and right now I am a moderately homeless person, and so screw tops are much more convenient. And unfortunately, this actually did have to be opened by a bottle opener, so my husband stuck a knife in it and figured it out. So I'm drinking this beautiful Chardonnay.
Awesome. So Nori right now is going through an unplanned home renovation, and I was so happy to get to visit last week what I call the Murphy Barajas compound. And so it was great fun. So we're so happy that
sat in my studio chair.
I do. I did post pictures. Like, I've been there. This place exists. So yeah, awesome studio that Nori has there, joining us from California. And so next, I have my colleague Lori Pasquini. She's from University of North Texas, and she's joining us from Dallas. What are you drinking today, Laura?
Well, I just want to say kudos, Nori, to your partner in crime's MacGyver skills. A knife. That's not enough. That's great. Good, good. Today, I have a new one I picked out because we know that nothing we share isn't confident. Everything we share is in confidence, so it's confidential. It's a Tinto Red 2012. I pick it up. Costco's got some good choices of wine, so if you have a membership, it's a value add, let me tell you. So it's a 92 points, and it's really nice. It's got wild berry, fruit palette, and something exciting we'll add to the website shortly will be our wine rack, what we're drinking and what we like and things like that. So stay tuned. It's pretty good, not bad. Editor's Choice 2012. So.
Very nice.
What about yourself, Tanya? What are you having today?
So for those of you who've joined us, you know that I have a story here that's going to take a minute. That I love my Marcus James Malbec. One, because it tastes good, and two, because it's $3.99 a bottle. So recently, and I don't know if it's because I was telling people about it on this podcast, my Little Corner Bodega is out of it. My Italian grocery is out of it, and so I was super disappointed. However, a friend of mine a couple weeks ago brought over box wine. I don't think I have drank box wine since 1993, honestly. And she's not really a wine drinker. And she brought over this Boda box that said she got at her local organic grocery. And I was like, okay, let's drink the Boda box tonight. We'll see how this goes. And it was pretty amazing. So I have a new grocery store in my neighborhood. It's called the Thyme Farmers Market. I like to call it the Thyme Farmers Market because that's just how I grew up. And so I went down there, and they have them for $20. So it's 3 liters. I have the Red Volution, and I've been drinking this for I think a week or two now. Well, a couple weeks, and it's nice because you don't have to drink it in 1 or 2 days. It stays for a month, supposedly. We know wine doesn't last that long around my house, but, just in case you don't drink as much as I do, it will be there for the duration. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our colleagues. Patrice Torsivia from Cornell in upstate New York is going to be joining us. She just landed and is rushing to her hotel room to jump in here. So you'll see her join us in just a bit. Our other colleague, Jess Knott from Michigan State, couldn't be here today, and we sure wish she could, but she had an unexpected emergency that popped up. So all in support of Jess and thoughts with her right now, and all of that good stuff. So Jess won't be joining us today. We'll have Patrice here shortly, and we're going to have a couple guests that are going to be joining us here in a minute, and you can already see Callie on the Twitter back handle. Again, if you're on Twitter, go ahead and type in hashtag 3WEDU or pound 3WEDU, and you can join in the back channel conversation for today. And Callie, I'm very jealous, seems to have something special, a Tincho Warm Weather Fave New Age Plus line. I don't even know what that is, but when she gets on with us here later in the episode, we'll have her explain. I just got super stoked because I see bubbles.
It looks delicious, by the way.
Yeah, right?
I know. It's good.
Yeah. All right. So since we got through what we all have uncorked, and I should invite all of you that are joining us right now to go ahead and tweet out using the hashtag a picture of what you're drinking or a picture of you drinking or not a picture of you, and just share with us, because we just are interested too in finding out about new and different wines and drinks. And it doesn't need to be wine, it could be whatever you want. So we're looking forward to seeing that in the Twitter back channel. So I'm going to introduce our tasting flight for this week. So it really, we sort of have these planning meetings. I don't know if they're planning meetings, just another reason to see our lovely faces and have chats. And so we started talking about just some recent things that were in the news, and it sort of was around the expectations in general that people have for women and men, and that there's sort of this gender equality issue. Sometimes we see men have one set of expectations for them, let's say in their dress or appearance. We see sort of this different expectation for women. And then also we see sort of this behaviors coming out where when it comes to sort of financial gains in higher education and some inequality issues that sort of rose in that. So there's a couple articles at the bottom of the Google Doc under resources. And one of the things that really sort of touched me was this great article about Sheryl Sandberg and how she dressed in comparison to Mark Zuckerberg. And for some of you that don't know, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, wears the same T-shirt and hoodie and jeans every day. I mean, not the same, but it looks the same. I mean, we hope he changes and washes it, but who really knows? And here we saw Sheryl in this suit and really amazing heels and so forth, and it's just very interesting. I, too, was just at a conference. Actually, Megan, who's going to be joining us later today, Megan Raymond, along with Callie Morrison, both from WCUT. Megan and I had both attended this global-minded conference in Denver, and it was interesting because there was a Google evangelist there who was in a hoodie and a T-shirt and jeans again and talking about expectations for dress, and not the gender issue with it, but, you know, he was wearing a hoodie, so forth. And I've also seen, you know, the Google senior legal lawyer or legal advisor, whatever he is, he did a keynote at ELI a few years ago in a hoodie and jeans, and I was like, dude, I want to wear a hoodie and jeans. What would happen if I walked up onto a stage wearing that? I think you know, there would be some negative sort of responses to that. And so years ago, when I first started out professionally, I just wore the black suit jacket, black suit pants, and then I read some research that people have more positive, you know, what's the word, impressions of you or of women when you wear a dress. So I was like, okay, great. So I started playing the part, you know, getting some dresses, getting some heels, of which I like to take off really soon after, and getting a little more established in my career, not too established. You know, I've sort of gone back to just wearing, you know, some more comfortable things. I got some new Vans. They're really cool. They're red. I really like wearing those. I also had foot surgery a bit ago, so heels are a little bit difficult for me. And so, you know, we're just talking about this. So also, you know, Whitney Kilgore and I were talking recently about an article I shared on Facebook about this expectation as women. By the way, I did my hair just for this. Earlier it was in a bun. I put makeup on. I put some eyebrows on too, so I didn't freak all of you out because they're blonde and you can't see them otherwise. But, you know, there's this expectation as women that we're going to show up in a dress and heels and have our makeup done, and I don't know how to deal with that, especially now I have a daughter who looks at me and I'm like, no, you're beautiful, you don't need makeup. And she's like, Mommy, you're beautiful, you don't need makeup. And I'm like, but society expects me to be wearing makeup and have my hair done. So anyways, this, the Alicia Keys article, the Sheryl Sands article, you know, we also see a lot of judgment on women's bodies about, I've had, and I have a drafted blog just because I can't believe that people in my evaluations think it's okay to judge my body. You know, if I was too large for my dress, or what I was wearing, and I don't know, any of my male colleagues I've talked to have never, ever, ever had one comment about their physical appearance or dress. And so I'm going to go ahead and hear my colleagues here and some of their stories and experiences and how they, you know, possibly deal with that.
I can't believe I'm fuming just hearing about you getting comments about your dress. And I actually think about the first time I met Jess, she's not here, so I'll talk about her, was she had a kick-ass pair of Wonder Woman high-top Converse shoes, and we met at the Blended Conference in 2013. I was like, that is friggin' rad. And I actually think clothing and however you dress talks about your personality and who you are. And you're right, there's some places and spaces that like have a certain mindset that your personality is this in this sector. So if you're in a higher ed, you're an administrator, or you're a researcher, you're a faculty, you're in education in some form, they have like, you should be this stereotype. And that lens comes up, and I think about, I came back from the American Library Association, and I think librarians have either like a super nerdy, a super quirky, or a weird, and I was like, librarian, pink mohawk, yes. To super nerd, I was like, yes. And I guess we do, but do we have to live that, I guess, image of self or expected image?
That's interesting when you talk about the authenticity in that, because Jess, too, I saw her at OLC Innovate last year at Tech, and she was wearing Converse with a skirt, and I was like, oh my gosh, why don't I have the guts to do that? And I do find women younger than me and older than me, but younger than me, inspiring me to be more my authentic self. And so I've felt so much of that, like, you must conform, these are the expectations for you, you must wear that. But I think as a society we can be a little bit more authentic, but I think for women we still sort of have that expectation. What does that mean for people's perception of my intelligence and of my professionalism? If I wear, Vans, with some jeans and a hoodie. So, and this is another big thing for people listening. I know the women are feeling this right now, but also, too, for all of us. When you see a woman walk on stage, how different is your perception when she's not wearing the dress and heels? Do you automatically start perceiving? These are so, like, unknown things to us, right? Like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, she must not be very intelligent, or she's, sort of frumpy, love that word, or whatever, because either they've dressed to something more comfortable to them. And there was a new recent article I saw on Facebook this week about women showing cleavage and what that means and so forth. And so it's just very interesting that we all have these societal norms and how we perceive women. Nori? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to catch you while you were drinking. I thought you were coming online.
Well, I was thinking how I agree with Laura. Clothing makes you feel the way you feel. It's like what's on the inside, I want it to be on the outside also. And I want to be perceived as authentic. I have tried to dress the part. I remember my first, oh, look, Patrice is in. Hi, Patrice.
Hi, Patrice.
I'm talking about my first real administrative job. I went out, and mind you, X-Files was like the hottest show on TV, so it wasn't a drag for me to go out and try to look like Scully, but I did go out and just seek suits that would make me look like Dana Scully, like the tailored coat and the longer skirt and just the right pump. But I'm not Dana Scully, and I used to wear pantyhose too. Like, pantyhose to me were hands down one of the most awful things that I had to do in that job, was actually wear hose with the suit and the shoes. And I got to this point where I tried the spray-on hose, and then I did like thigh highs. I mean, it was an ongoing battle, because I felt like my kidneys were being destroyed. I made that weird sound when I walked. There was nothing about the way I looked on the outside that was authentically portraying me professionally, what I had to offer in the organization. I really was dressing up so that people would let me participate.
Yeah.
And over time, as I felt more confident in my roles, I have a reputation for, the slice that I'm competent in. I have a good reputation, and I feel very comfortable wearing. You guys know me. The most fashionable shoe I have is a Dansko heel, and that's it. I mean, That's it. There's like no Jimmy Choos hanging out in a hidden closet, and they're never there.
No, it is funny. So Callie said, she goes, it's hard to not be judgmental. The question was, if you come on stage and you see someone who dresses their appearance, you look at them, we automatically judge. And she said, it's hard not to be judgmental, but when I catch myself, I totally mentally slap myself. And it's really like something that we do automatically. We are visual creatures, and we see, and we are like our perception of others, and we put it into what we know and what we are. And pantyhose just gave me a big shudder there. And the spray-on hose, I don't even know what that is. So, like, when you say pantyhose, you don't mean fishnets, right? Because that I know. Not. Patrice, welcome to the conversation about clothing.
Yeah, so everybody who's listening, this is our other colleague we are referring to before. This is Patrice Torsivia, and she is at Cornell and is one of our 3WEDU crew joining us here today. You know, we talked about this the other day about the idea of fishnets, and people think it's like this deviant behavior, but for some folks, you know, fishnets are very common, and it doesn't, again, mean that you are any less intelligent or have any better of a message. And I think for women, we are, I mean, my getting dressed, I don't know about you guys, but sorry, I dropped my microphone. But my getting dressed is like stresses me out. It's gotten to the point where I just have like standard like conference outfits because I'm so stressed out in getting dressed and trying to figure out what to wear. And I know recently we had this discussion a couple of days ago on do you wear nylons or not for a job interview? And we all agreed no more nylons. Throw your nylons out. I think I had the same feeling, Nori, that you did, and Laura, probably you, when the Spanx thing came out, and I just decided, I tried it. Yeah, I tried it for a minute, and I was like, I love every cheeseburger and every piece of cheese I ate here in Milwaukee, and that's just how it's going to be. I cannot wear Spanx.
I had this theory at the time that I had to wear pantyhose that we could solve the overcrowded jail conditions if somebody could technically create a pair of pantyhose that were 2 sizes too small for anybody who'd committed a crime, and they had to wear them for the duration, and that if something, like if they tried to remove the pantyhose or be more comfortable in the pantyhose, that you know, they would, something bad would happen to them, and then their sentence would not be commuted. Or I just felt like it was a prison sentence. And yeah, pretty strongly.
I like wearing fashionable tights, though. And, you know, I do have some of those, but I agree that people can be very judgmental about things. And I was at a conference recently where, you know, a woman of, you know, senior leadership wears, you know, fairly short skirts and fishnet stockings and whatnot. And I think it's awesome, but men were very judgmental. I mean, some of them made comments like, you know, I wouldn't let my daughter dress like that. You know, how can she possibly be a professional and dress like that?
And this was a really senior leader person who has accomplished a ton professionally. And again, we can only focus on our fashion. Now, this came up too in one of our links because with the election, there has been a lot of media and coverage just on what the female candidate is wearing. Is that the right color? Is it the right cut of suit? Oh my gosh, should she wear a pantsuit or something else? But you know, the male candidate can look like he just got out of bed and drug a suit off the rack, and nobody makes any comment about his professionalism. And it's really hard to hear these messages. For me, it rings home because I now have an 8-year-old daughter, and I hear her hearing these, or see her hearing these things, and I don't want her to grow up in a world that's so worried about her appearance because people will perceive her a certain way, where men don't have that. And I see this, so I see this in kids, right? Little boys, like shoes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And girls, don't get me on Disney, but girls are like, oh, you should wear pink and frilly stuff and dresses. I let my kid wear whichever she wants to wear, as long as it's accurate for the weather. But at some day, I know that she's going to have more pressure from society to be something else. And she gets tons of encouragement now. you know, and what she wears and being individual and being unique. And I'm not sure if that's the change in where we are in society or if one day she's going to be pushed more. And I catch myself sometimes like, oh, we're going to a wedding. You must wear a dress. We're doing this. And I'm like, oh, wait, stop, Tanya. So, you know.
Well, I felt good about there was an English pub called The Pub in Orlando, and as we all conference there at that center, we know the place is. I was there for Brexit, and I was so impressed because, you know, they usually have women in these little kilts and whatever. Well, the men wore kilts. And I was like, it's about time. I like to see their legs. So I do think our male colleagues listening, they do struggle a bit with fashion, but it's really like my pantalones are going to be jeans, casual, business, or suit, this, or like it's very few and far between. And like my partner, he's stressed about wearing shorts to this social because they could. He's like, but do I? Because there's judgment. There's judgment in how we dress and appear from everyone, every gender, and we know this. I'd like to shift to the other topic because I think it's really interesting. It's something we talk about, and it's more around the value of how we see ourselves in different ways. So value comes up financially for salary. We talk about a glass ceiling and a double glass ceiling, especially for minorities. We talk about the gender gap for consulting, what we're worth versus what our maybe male counterparts charge, and then funding. Who's accessing grant initiatives, extra monies, external funding sources, and how does that go about, and the politicking of that. So some of the conversations we talk are going to be guided around. I'm the one who blogged on the new site, and I talked about the idea of the pay gap has barely budged in a decade. At the current rate, the gap won't close for more than 100 years. And it's the Association for Women, University and Women, that put this out. It was a 2014 study, and Catherine Hill in 2016 has written about it, talked about it, and said their financial opportunities are not equal, and there's going to be differences in how we're paid. But in higher education, can we address this? How can we address this? Especially, I'd say, at our public institutions where salaries are shared, we know what they are, and what does that look like? So I open up the table for anyone who wants to chat about that.
Can I open with this, because I think we can move forward from here. But as we started tonight, I grabbed my notebook for, I recently I'm new to OLC, and I was transitioning from a university and where I've been working in both a faculty development department and on grants related to faculty development and instructional technology. So anyway, I had all my notes. As you go through, I think most people, when you go through an interview process, I had applied for multiple jobs. I had, risen to some of the finalists in a few positions. So I was getting good at this. I was getting good at that front part. But when it came to the first offer I had, all of a sudden this was new territory. I knew that what I was getting paid at my liberal arts college was so far below what I had been paid when I was a K-12 administrator that I was expecting to return to an administrative salary that I had been comfortable with prior to joining higher ed. So I reached out to Tanya, and I reached out to other colleagues asking for some advice. I think I talked to Michael Berman also on this. So I took my notes out, and I'm reviewing what I started with, and then I have side notes with what people helped me remember. So I'd like to sort of frame this with, here might be like a go-to, these are some things you should think about before entering a negotiation. And initially, I was looking at salary. I think we start with salary all the time. We're looking at what our salary is, and we want to negotiate with things like, I'm not interested in making a lateral move. I am looking to advance myself. So when people want to know whatever salary you're coming from, that's not part of your negotiation. Nobody looks to take a decrease in salary or get the same salary. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, that's just a giant blanket, but in general, people are looking to advance themselves throughout their career. So a career change should probably have some kind of increase in salary.
Unless you're just starting, then that's different.
That's true. That's true. And mind you, yeah. I mean, I've got 30 years in my career. So I'm advancement, that's where I'm going. So I also started thinking of what's the medical. So now you're looking at a comparison. You need to investigate what medical you have right now and what that coverage is for you, your partner, and a family if you have one. And then you also need to be thinking about what actually gets put into your retirement. This is one of those subtleties that most of my colleagues who are below the age of 40, like me when I was below the age of 40, all of that was sort of lost on me. Like, retirement is so far away. But I just left an institution that had phenomenal retirement. They not only, I put in 5%, they put in 10% of my salary every month towards my retirement. So I did not get compensated that well as far as my actual salary, but what I'm leaving with towards my retirement was huge, and what I came to was far less. So now I have two leverages when I'm negotiating. Salary is one thing, but now when you're looking at what that compensation is as far as retirement, you can sort of go back and forth and say, well, your retirement is far less, so you're going to have to meet me this way in salary. And now you're not talking dollar for dollar, you're talking about the whole benefit package that you're getting. So that helped me just by myself. And then once I started talking to colleagues, I have notes here about travel. I'd forgotten that I'm accustomed to a certain travel budget, and I had $10,000 worth of travel to go to conferences, especially when I was presenting, and presenting topics that were related to the grant. I'd never thought of negotiating for travel, but that was really important in the job that I was looking at. So I was able to ask about a travel budget and use that as leverage. I was also, I'd forgotten about, I had a supply budget, and I was used to getting a new computer every year or every 2 years. So then I started talking about supplies and hardware. Then we looked at paid sick time, holidays, tuition remission, which for those of us in higher ed, when you leave an institution, you probably have some kind of tuition remission, and if you join an organization that is a nonprofit, they could use, I think it's a $5,200 taxable write-off that the company can take if they provide you tuition remission. So start asking about some of these things in your negotiation. And then the final thing I did is I went out, and I think most people would do this, but I got 3 comparable salaries. I went to Glassdoor, I used pay scale salary reports, and then I had another one that I don't remember. But all of these things helped me before I even opened the negotiation. I had answered these things for myself before I started talking to the HR person when I got the job offer.
I think one of the things, too, is coming from one who hired lots of staff and so forth, is so being at a public institution, you have like a rate, a range. You know what your budget is. So first of all, no matter who came into the door, I gave them the maximum rate. This is a candidate. We really want you. If we don't really want that person there, it should be a failed search, and we always gave them the maximum level. And it was really interesting where sometimes, I had to do that little cognitive slap. If, like, a woman tried to negotiate with me, I was sort of like, what are you talking about? Like, I've given you the top. But good for her for negotiating. I think also what I learned, like Nori, is I can't give you more salary. This is a public institution. This is it. But what I can offer you is I can offer you what we call S&E, so supplies and expenses. X number of dollars for books, your office supplies are taken care of, X number of dollars for technology, and then also like not just traveling for conferences, but professional development. So, you will go through leadership training. ELI has a great one. We talked about more. Just Not, who could be here today, we had these conversations about different professional development opportunities. Just a travel budget. It's for conferences in order to promote the work that's being done, to excel the brand of the institution. And it's a dissemination piece. And so I think that's something that we really need to remember. And also professional development development piece, because the workshops offered at conferences can be a great sort of avenue for professional development. So I think that was another thing. Also, having flexible work is something that you can offer in lieu of dollars. So you don't have to be here 8 to 5 and punch the clock. You know, we can accommodate different sorts of scheduling and those sorts of things. So I think, you know, when you're hiring folks, there are some different things there that you could sort of play with. So one of the things, too, in my unit is that we really felt, although we all came from different disciplines, that ties with your discipline, and again, thanks to Bob Coletta, ties to your own discipline are very important. So we would support your travel to your own disciplinary conference and your own, you know, disciplinary boards or different executive committees that you were on. So these are just, you know, an array of other things that you can be thinking about. When I was faculty, it was sort of like books, travel, computer. You don't really get a lot. Sometimes when you're outside of faculty, and for me, managing my own budget, you know, there's a little bit more flexibility. And just one other thing we were lucky is our unit got consulting dollars. So when I was with the communication department, what they did is when you got consulting dollars, a certain percentage of that went back to the communication department. What we did for my previous unit at the Learning Technology Center at UWM, which was an instructional improvement and technology unit, is we would have one consulting gig that we did come back into our S&E. This is what afforded us professional development, because for a staff of 14, I had $12,000 a year. That was including my travel. Everybody, that's what Nori had just for herself. That's what we had for everyone. So 2 ways we were able to work that is, one, when we did consulting, one came back to the department and one went to you as individuals. So this is building a little capacity for professional growth. And the second thing was teaching overload. So we had a mixed department. Everyone's required to teach at least one class a year. And those funds came back to the department. So we were able to use those again to build capacity for professional development and those sorts of things. So just, Nori, great idea to share all of those strategies. For those of you who are directors of units, this is just another way to do that. And I just want to bring up one big point before I get off my Boda box, and that is, you know, so I'm just thinking of this example, like Friends, or we've seen this articles in the movies these days where there's such a gender equality in actors, and there's gender equality in athletics, and the reason that women are starting to have equality is because men are sharing what they make for once. So when a man and a woman both have a leading role, we're finding out the woman is making significantly less. Now men are being feminist, as they should be, and just being equalitist, and sharing, is that a word? Equalist. And sharing what they're making. And so luckily we have this group here, and we've had lots of conversations about what are you making, what should I be making, these sorts of things. We need to start sharing that. For me in public sector, our salaries are of public record. And for the state of Wisconsin, they're all public in something called a Red Book. So I think we need to start sharing a little bit more what we're making, you know, look to support each other, and just making sure that there's equality.
And I think of, like, coach, as you said this, I think of coaches coming to mind. So RIP Pat Summit, she's like the one who just passed away from Lady Vols. So she was the coach for that, and she passed away, unfortunately. But she was one of the leaders in that area of coaching that said, hey, we're not going to take this unequal pay. And she had a lot of poise and character and stood as a leader and fought against male peers like that really were like, what do you deserve the salary that I get? And she was an amazing woman. So kudos to people like her that broke through in our industry in higher ed. And coaching is one of the highest paid areas we know of.
Yeah, and I think the point that Tanya brought up about negotiation is important, because frequently women, I mean, I think it's great that, Tanya, that you give at the highest end you can. I mean, I think that frequently women get lowballed with the assumption that they won't negotiate, and so that's why this conversation is so important. And you know, in addition to the negotiation, and Nori, I'm sure this was part of it, is, you know, we need to be able to express why we feel like we deserve a high, you know, more salary than what they're offering. as opposed to just saying, you know, well, I think I should get $5,000 more. And for a lot of women, it's really difficult to toot our own horn and, talk with confidence about, what our capabilities are, how we can add value, and why we deserve the higher pay. And I do think the flexibility is key. I mean, that is another thing, is to really think about what you value, and keeping in mind that salary is not the only piece of it. And, having flexible work hours, being able to work home part of the time, having the flexibility to leave work to go take care of things you need to take care of, is really valuable to many of us.
That's, so I've never been one that's necessarily been financially driven, although I definitely, being poor growing up, thought when I got a college degree I was going to be a millionaire because everyone lied to me. And I thought I was like going to open a .com, be a millionaire, darn you society. But I think that's a really important thing. To me, it's quality of life. So especially having an 8-year-old and having some flexibility of when and where I work. Also, it's what's called chronemics. My natural chronemics, I'm not really good at getting up in the morning, and I'm not really good at going to bed. So where some people might be able to work 8 to 5, I'm just not productive in that time. So providing me, I think everyone should have a siesta. I love working 10 to 2, taking a couple hours off, and then going back at night at working. And I guess we referenced this a little bit before about this whole seat time. Right now we're based off of this manufacturing structures in our organizations, and I'm not pumping out some sort of product on a machine that I need everyone else there at the same time to pump out the product. And if anybody says that student learning is a product, we have something to talk about. But anyways, but I think if you don't have the money to offer, or just, I think a lot of times that directors, because they're predominantly men in upper administration, don't think about how important that is for us who have to provide care for children. Maybe we're single parents, we have older parents, or just in our families we're the caregivers. So great point. I just want to stop for a minute so you guys saw pop up your screen one of our guests today. So one of our guests today is Callie Morrison. She's joining us from WCET, and we're going to have her colleague Megan Raymond joining us in just a second. So sorry, I just wanted to introduce her.
Actually, Megan is on the Twitter feed. Hi.
Hi. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So Megan is just going to join us in the Twitter feed.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Welcome. Things happen.
Yeah, well, welcome, Callie, and we're so glad you're here. For those of you who are joining us on the Twitter back channel at 3WEDU, you'll see Megan Raymond tweeting her heart away, as well as some of us multitasking. So I had sent out a tweet, and so if you're joining us, please share with us what are the different things that you consider when you are negotiating a job. Beyond just negotiating salary, what are some of the things that are important to you as women, or or as men in negotiating these sorts of things? It'd be great to put that together.
I'll just point out a couple articles. I was going to point out a couple places, like in the UK, they actually looked at Essex as the one that was talking about the higher ed gender gaps, and they were talking about actually doing something about it and doing an institutional assessment. So most of us look at bands, look at just career kind of tracks, and if you haven't done that at your institution, then you will soon. And they made a deliberate decision to say our HE gender pay gap is not there. So I thought that was really cool. The other side that I know Callie shared about, so she shared the same article, was around funding and development opportunities, and so women in tech to cracking the VC ceiling, that's a different glass ceiling. So just funding for consulting to projects to development is kind of what I think of that comes out of some of what we do in higher ed, because we have some of our colleagues that are going that way, and how are they portrayed or treated if they're consulting or researching or working externally, and what's their value added. So
I want to share something from the Twitter backstream. Oregon State talked about things that she's interested in negotiating, and it's amount of autonomy, and I so agree with that. if you're hiring me, you have to know I'm really great and good for this job, and I don't need to be micromanaged. I definitely, one of the reasons I left a position was for that. She also talked about leadership potential, skill development for future opportunities, professional development funds, which I think we've all agreed are really important, and support and staffing. A lot of times you look at your job description and you look at where you're going and you're like, there's no way I can be successful at this with the lack of human or financial resources. We also have Rebecca Peterson joining us, and she had mentioned, as I did, key is flexibility. I'll put in the hours, but a flex schedule is an option on certain days. And so she also mentioned the collegiality and the fit with the team, which are very important things to have there. So, and another thing she mentioned is the work interesting. I've probably stayed as long as where I have because some of those things, because of the autonomy, flexible schedule, and the work is really interesting. I think that's why a lot of us end up in this sort of ed tech innovation place, because it's always changing really quickly.
And I was just going to add that in addition to negotiating your original salary, at many places, especially state institutions, raises are not coming fast and furious. And so there are other ways, like the ways that we're talking about here related to, negotiating your salary, can also be negotiated at that time of year and can help with, we talk about women leaving the profession. Certainly work-life balance and other things that we've talked about can help women, can help companies in higher ed retain women in the field.
And I should mention, part of the reason why I give them the maximum when they come in is because once you're in, there's very little negotiation, and we never get raises. I mean, despite the fact we're in the state of Wisconsin, I think I got a 1% raise last year after a 3-year freeze. So you have to think about those situations too when you're going into possibly, a public institution or a different sector. My friend Terry also had just tweeted here some of the things that interest him when he's negotiating. Thanks, Terry. Great to have men joining us to talk about these issues. And he talked about tech equipment, opportunities for grants, which that's one we didn't necessarily touch on, professional development, travel money, summer salary. For those of us on 9-month contracts, summer salary can be really important. And then also study abroad, which is really interesting. At this point in my life, I'm definitely interested, and we actually talked about this in our meeting, is the potential to travel more internationally. Again, working for a public institution, we are on a travel ban right now. Nobody is allowed to travel in the state of Wisconsin for government employees. And so although I have a federal grant, which obviously funds some of my travel for the purposes of the grant, there's very little opportunity to travel internationally. If anybody wants to wrap up anything with that, let me know, and then if not, we'll move to the boxed wine moment of the month. But you guys go ahead and let me know what else any final reflections. And Callie, if you want to jump in, feel free.
Well, let's turn it over to Callie for a rant. Do you have a rant for us?
Well, it's not actually a rant. It's an opportunity. So we have our WCT annual meeting coming up in October this year. We'll be in Minneapolis, which, Minneapolis in October, it's going to be awesome weather. Probably. Just like Montana, just like other places, you never know, right? But we're going to push for that awesome weather. Although really the learning's going to be so hot inside, you'll never get out there to see it. Yeah, that wasn't as funny as it sounded in my head. But we have 2 opportunities that tie directly into the 3W EDU group. So the first one, Laura, is going to do a session for us on how mentoring contributes to higher education. And along with that, so thinking about the research and putting that into practice, but we also have mentoring opportunities through WCET, through the meeting, where when you register, you can choose to be a mentor or be paired with a mentor.
Okay.
So that'll help you get through, choose what sessions you want to do, and have someone to kind of bounce ideas off of. So that's available through the registration system.
And just to
And
jump
then
in real quick, Callie. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So we call this section, I shouldn't just say rants, we call it last call. So they're toast, roast, and or boast. So it's great to promote the work that our women doing. Laura Pasquini, one of our colleagues here in 3EDU, is very passionate about mentoring, not only in practice, but also in scholarship. And it's great to have this opportunity working with WCET to do this session. So we hope that folks will join. So Callie, sorry, turn it back over to you.
No, that's great. I love what you added. So always looking for the value add, right? So
Yeah.
then we are also going to have a 3W EDU conversation at the meeting. We're having that very strategically on Thursday afternoon from 4:30 to 15, because just following that, the group dinners run starting at 6:30. So the 3W EDU conversation will focus on kind of a forum for how we engage in meaningful conversation, an extension of what you guys are doing here, right? So all of these ladies will be with us and sharing their thoughts and gathering thoughts from everyone who participates. And I know you've done some others and you've had both men and women participate, so it's open. But then there will be a little bit of a time for some happy hour to head down to the hotel bar before we go to the group dinners. So, and group dinners are always fun. Funny's flight got delayed last year, so she missed our group dinner but joined us after. And fun always continues after the conference as well. So, and great conversations. So
Yeah, and
those are kind of some of the opportunities we have.
Excellent. Thanks, Callie.
Callie's really helped to be a big support of us since the beginning. So she's listened to our podcast from the start. So God help her for that. And but she's been drinking, so it's been fine. But I will say the focus for our group coming there will be to have a conversation, and we're probably going to have some events, and that's why the website's been established, because we're going to be visiting a few places, and WCET is one of the few this fall. We're just organizing a few others, and you'll see them come up on the website. And there might be a podcasting live opportunity as well from those events if we get our technical butts in order. So, so we really appreciate that. And I will sign up to be a mentee at this event, because I've never been to WCET, but for practitioners, I think it's a really interesting opportunity for directors, managers, practitioners that work in technology and higher ed. I think it's a really great value add. So I'm excited to go and find my mentor to be like, what the heck am I doing here? So it's a good, nice conference kind of buddy mentor, it sounds like. So.
Callie, in relation to, we had two topics tonight, Callie, and as our guest speaker, would you like to address, we talked a lot about negotiation and some really interesting things there, but we did start with things about clothing, and I love some of your tweets. Do you want to take a few moments? This is your time to participate in our conversation. So pick one of our issues and speak to it.
Well, so I'll piggyback. So I think that culture is the big thing, right? For me, culture is a big thing. Whether that means, and that encompasses both what you make, what benefits you have, and what you can wear, right? I'm pretty comfortable that was one of the first to do the kind of video teleconferencing, working remotely. He was working in the Colorado Mountains for Louisiana back in the early 90s. So he talks about how he used to go to video conferences in like a dress from here up, right? He only had on a button-up shirt and then shorts and sandals. So I'm very lucky that I have that thing. But like I said earlier, when I'm going to a conference, I know there's a whole lot more there's a whole more eyes on me and judgment on what that's going to be. And like I said, my own self, I have to take a minute and dial it back sometimes when I start getting all judgy in my head, because you never know what what that person's ability to afford like Megan said, the ability to afford a hoodie and jeans is a lot easier than to afford a nice dress and heels, right? I mean, we get
You should.
We get food, right? We get
price
food on
hoodie.
what our clothes cost.
There's in the LA culture, you can get a $250 hoodie, and you haven't even gone to your jeans yet. So yeah, beware.
Or you can shop the Ann Taylor Loft Rack and get great $15 dresses. And the thing I love about a dress is I don't have to worry about matching anything, and they pack really, really well.
I think that is definitely a future episode that we need to talk about our strategies, because you guys know I don't like shopping, and I am on a fixed budget. So I'd love that to be maybe one of our topics in the future podcast, to talk about some of our strategies for.
Right. But I think Callie points out something really interesting, and I've been thinking this while we were talking.
Yeah.
Regional. I know when I am in the South that I really need to wear a dress. I just know regionally that I cannot get away with something more casual unless I'm really in a closed environment where I'm not going to participate. I'm in a national environment where people know my region. But I understand that there are regional differences, and I live in California, and I get it. I get it.
So future topics, we have regional differences on gender equality. That would be a good one. And then also talking about, and I know it's a women's thing, but how to be efficient and effective in acquiring your clothing. So that might be fun. So I don't know. We'll hear that in a few.
I just learned that those were issues, so thank you. I put them on my list. It's like, whoa, regionals matter? Oh my gosh.
I only know that from when I moved to the Midwest, which is super conservative, to Arizona for my my first doctorate attempt, and we very much wear navy suits and nylons, and I moved to Arizona, and everyone's like, are you crazy? So I think the regional thing will be good. I think there are gender equality issues regionally as well, and since we represent almost every region here in this podcast, that will be cool. And also, too, I have some strategies for dressing that I would love to share. So I am not a fashionista, believe that. But I just wanted to wrap up here in the last couple minutes and give a few more boasts. So Nori Murphy-Barajas, with her new position with the Online Learning Consortium. Congratulations, Nori.
I love my new job. Love, 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 love it.
She also is over. Oh, sorry, Nori, go ahead.
I just love. I have an amazing female boss, Kathleen Knives. Woot woot. You are truly a gentlewoman and a leader in ways that I am completely enamored. I just every time I watch her do business, I just step back.
Awesome. So Nori's also leading a grant effort, which is Gates funded for Online Learning Consortium, which ends tomorrow. And so if you have any interest in applying for this grant, for all of you listening, please consider, you can contact Nori directly, or she'll tweet out the information for the grant if you're interested in putting that together. I also wanted to mention that several of us will be in Madison, Wisconsin, sort of in my Wisconsin hood, next month for the Distance Teaching and Learning Conference. For those of you interested in research, there's going to be a research interest group specifically organized by one of my colleagues at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Simone Conceso. So we might all meet up for a happy hour, who knows, but several of us will be there if you're interested. We're also looking to put together some Women Who Whine activities and sessions at the Online Learning Consortium Conference, which will be in Orlando, and it's called the OLC Accelerate. And so those are just some things on my radar. Patrice or Laura, do you guys have anything else on your radar before we wrap up?
Just hope that you should announce the date for the next Women Who Whine, and hopefully some Women Who Whine will all gather in Ithaca, and we will have a live podcast from a local winery there.
Well, we have one more before that. So we have July 13th is our next scheduled podcast, and then we have one in August that might be in Ithaca.
Please join us for, sorry, Laura, Wednesday, July 13th, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. for our 3WEDU broadcast number 7. And we'll start putting on the website different places that will be at different sessions that we're having if you guys all want to join in or meet us in person or just have a glass of wine with us. That will be cool. And then we will have more about our session after that, which we are looking for sponsorship and may have one, as Patrice had mentioned, at a great winery in Ithaca. So if anybody's looking for a reason to travel to a winery to hang out with really intelligent, fun people. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Stuff coming up.
Sorry, Laura, what?
I was just going to say we'll post some events coming up. We do have a few other things. There's like things happening in November. We have Web Summit, so we're going to get our calendars together and get our act together. So see some updates on the websites, and we'll have the archives and requested just audio podcasts because some people don't always like to watch. So we'll rip out the audio soon.
Yeah, the media. Nori, what were you saying?
Hi, Callie. Thank you.
Yes, and thank very much to Callie for joining us here virtually, synchronously, and for Megan joining us on the Twitter back channel. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next month.
Bye, all.